Good evening. Welcome to Street Talk. I have two of my favorite guests here tonight. Two gentlemen that were running for office back in September. One of them that kind of won when he got through his primary, and another one who did an astounding feat of really pulling together the whole of Hamden, really for a multitude of candidates. But tonight we're on to a different topic. Tonight, we're talking about young Democrats. And the reason I want to have these two gentlemen on is because I want to talk about what's important to their generation. I know I'm getting like aged. I'm Gen X here. I'm not even Gen Y or something in between there. I don't think I'm as old as I feel some days. But I think it's important because the next generation that's coming up is going to be talking about things and dealing with things when I'm crapping my pants in diapers. So I want to make sure that these guys are ready, and I know that they have issues and they have things that are important to them. And I think for us to be inclusive and to be able to see the world through their eyes is really important. So I have my friend, Brad Macdowall. I have J5 over here, Justin Farmer in the fifth. Great. She's affectionately going to be known as J5 from now on. Over here. And you are now the president of New Haven Young Democrats, and you are the state liaison to Young Democrats.
Yeah.
Who are the Young Democrats in New Haven?
So really, it's just an organization that is it's a local chapter of Young Democrats of America. So you have the federal chapter, and then you have the state chapter, Connecticut Young Democrats, and then all over Connecticut you have smaller local chapters. So we are Greater New Haven Young Democrats. So anyone in Greater New Haven,
which includes which towns?
So it starts a little south of the valley, like just at the south end of the valley, and it would extend all the way down until you start hitting near Bridgeport. So I think it would actually probably end around Stratford. Yeah. So as far south as Milford, that whole area, the whole 91, 95 corridor pretty much, would be included in Greater New Haven Young Democrats. And anyone from 14 to 36 is welcome to join. Anyone 18 or over must be registered as a Democrat. And we're really an organization dedicated to, not only getting young Democrats involved, but I think we're really looking for more ways right now to get young Democrats elected. Like Justin and I fought really hard over this past year to make sure that not only, ourselves, but other young Democrats got elected, around our areas. And we want to expand that and make sure that keeps happening because we've seen some really great progress.
Yeah. Now, state liaison. What are you doing as a state liaison?
So my job description, I'm supposed to hook the New Haven chapter back to the state chapter. So making sure that we coordinate together, that events that are going on. So I think the whole idea for me of the Young Dems is to build out the bench and cultivate the next group of leaders. So it's important for us in New Haven to know what's going on, in the rest of the state with young people. And there's plenty of other young people who recently got elected who are doing great stuff in the rest of the state, and we should know what those things are, be able to partnership on different initiatives, and then also get to know each other, because hopefully we'll be the next group of leaders who will be making the decisions in the state. So
now, as president, do you have a vision for what you'd like to see? I mean, how long does your term as president?
The terms for all the leadership positions are a year.
A year, okay.
So we got elected at the end of December, and we'll have elections again in December. And really, I think what I want to do and what I want to do differently is be a little bit more active in getting younger Democrats. So, getting into high schools, getting those kids involved in campaigns, you know, showing them that, hey, you may not be able to vote yet, but you can have a difference. You can make a difference. You know, I think that's super important. You know, I've not only, you know, ran my own campaign for council with the help of a lot of other people like Justin. But you know, I've run other campaigns as well. And one of the key things that I've always done is have, you know, if I'm the candidate, I'll go visit, or I'll have the candidate, whoever that is, go visit the high schools in the district and, you know, talk to the students in you know, government classes and all that about, you know, how they can make a difference. You know, this is who I am, this is why I'm doing this, and here's why this should matter to you, you know, have an impact, you know, and I found that, you know, it's sort of, you know, gives the students a little bit, they start to realize that they can actually make a difference, and they get involved and they have a really great time. And so I think that's what I'd like to do. Start young Democrats younger, you know, so that by the time they're, you know, Justin and my age or even younger, they can be running for office themselves.
Well, I know one of the things I truly enjoy, obviously, as I participate in campaigns with you guys and other people's campaigns, is they do reach out to the high school level, and part of that is obviously their enthusiasm and kind of a carefree attitude about what they have to say on the phone to people. Is, you know, I've talked with them and gotten to know who they are. And what are they looking to do, or what are they looking towards? I know that's how I met you two. I met these two gentlemen on Gail Schlossberg's reelection campaign, and that was one of the kind of bright lights that I saw that drew me into you guys, is that you were so active, and you were involved. And I know I watched Justin from my car, as he runs in between houses doing door hangers or other things, and it's you know, it's that sense of fearlessness, which comes from both of you guys, that you're not afraid to be able to put it out there, and I hope that you never lose that throughout your lives, because it's that unencumberdness that makes you good candidates and good people along those lines. So that's my personal kudos to the guys on TV. Usually I do that when I'm trying to recruit them to come on the TV show. I don't have to do it as much on camera or anything, but you know, I think that's what's important, and I do think that obviously getting the next generation involved, because my reality is I've been here since 1976, probably longer than you guys have been born. And I went through my whole life up until 4 years ago without, you know, actually following through on being involved in politics or, you know, getting my citizenship. Because until you get involved with it, you don't understand the value of what your voice is or what your vote means. And I think it's that apathy that really has driven things. And so people like to complain about everything on the face of the earth, but they're unwilling to put themselves out there to go do something about it.
Yeah.
And the least of which you can do is you can go educate yourself and vote.
Yeah.
And so if we can get people more involved in that, I do. I think that's one of the most important things, or the most important gifts we can give each other. So looking ahead from, you know, just what young Democrats are doing, I like to look at what are some of the issues that you guys have, like on a statewide kind of platform. I don't know if you have a platform or if it's more focused on getting people involved.
For me, it's getting people involved, but I think one of the frustrations coming into politics and being a younger person is that, you know, I'm a person who was a Bernie bro. I supported Bernie. I wanted Bernie in there. But I think a lot of people have this idea that that was the only way, and that, we're only focused on, someone like Bernie being in there, and we only want to change stuff and mess up the system, and we're not willing to work with people to see the things that we want. That's not true. I'm an activist. I went to protests, I went to rallies, but the reason why I've gone the next level, jumping into the political ring, is because I realized that's not sustainable. We need those individuals to get just as involved with that as we need them to get involved with the appointed committee that works on trees, or we need them to be a person who can, go to SCROG meetings and find out the Southern Regional Council that deals with getting grants that help our community. We need them to be younger people such as myself to be actively involved in those good causes, because those things have a direct and immediate return for our communities. So it's really, and part of that is also the identity politics aspect of that. I know tons of my friends who are like, I only care about environmental reform. I care about criminal justice reform. I care about this, niche thing, or I care about Planned Parenthood. And another way to get involved with those organizations and get involved with those causes is doing that through the political realm. And I think that's where I want to get that activist energy, that real sense of urgency, to get those individuals to realize that they can do that within the system as well as outside of the system.
I like to say that change comes in pieces.
Yeah.
And if you've ever really studied legislation or understood an issue that's gone on over decades, you will see that you always have one bite of the apple, and then you got to come back and you got to take like another bite, and you got to take another bite, and it's something that progresses over time. I think a lot of people take a look at an issue and they say, well, I see it here and I want it over here, and it should just happen.
Yeah.
That's nice. You got
Yeah.
quite a few other people that see it like over here and like it over here, and might not understand all the issues that come at it from over here. And I think it takes a certain kind of person to understand, and you're right, from the activist point of view, that it takes a while to be able to get to that. And when you get there, it might look completely different than what you thought it would be in the first place.
Yeah.
But that's part of what politics is.
Yeah.
It's an art of negotiation, as I'll call it. And the more in life that you can find things that are win-win for both sets of people, the more likely you are to be successful at it.
Yeah.
The more that you stonewall people, or think that that you have like all the votes on like one side and you're not even asking the other side to participate, the more that you're going to have people who will stonewall you. And I love what I've seen up at the Capitol over these last like 4 years. It is easier to kill a bill than it is to get it passed.
Yeah.
And I think that's an important like part of this. But here's the other side. You know what? If you don't have people on the front lines who understand that or you have numbers behind your what you do, or you coalesce with other people, then you're not necessarily going to be taken seriously.
No, you can't get traction without people. We need people in both aspects, and I think where we're at, we need people who can hold duality, where they can be in a space and say, I can go to a rally and support people who are doing this, but I also will get into the trenches and do the tedious work and do the book work and have the uncomfortable conversations and really try to negotiate and get to where we need to be.
So I'm going to switch gears here a little, and it's not too far off of the switch of gears, because I want to talk to you guys as the next generation, millennials. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. as millennials, and we're off of the young Dems, so this is their opinions only. I want to confuse anybody with any kind of platform. What are the issues that are most important to you?
You want to take this one first?
So I really have trouble coming up with just a few issues that are super important to me because, I think that especially now as an elected official, we're constantly looking at, tons of different things and tons of different, it's hard really now to focus on, one specific item or a few. Personally, I think that on the state and federal level, on the state and local level right now, we're dealing with some really hard fiscal issues. So, I think that we need people who are going to legislate in a way that is conducive to that fiscal, situation that we're in, but do so with compassion. There have been a lot of different cuts made that, really adversely impact some really important, parts of the state. Social services, when the governor cut social services, that was, that had a devastating impact for some really, some people in this state who really needed those services. So right now, I think my personal big focus in what I would like to see up in Hartford and even at the local level is people who are going to handle this fiscal crisis in a compassionate way. Look for a way that, we're going to have to make some really tough cuts, but let's not do it by making the most vulnerable people in this state more vulnerable. That I think is my big, focus.
Yeah, for me, housing has been something that I continue to see to be like a really big issue, and to see I'm lucky and blessed in so many ways of where I am in my life and having a family that can help me and support me with, right now I'm living at home and I'm paying for school and I'm doing this, and that's great. But there's so many of my friends who don't have a system or support system that can allow them to ease on the rent or to be somewhere where they can afford, like most apartments are not cheap. There isn't really affordable housing or apartments in the state, and our needs, where we need to be is up here, and where we have is down here. So that's something that I keep seeing, and even for older people, to see them lose the ability to stay in their homes or to have somewhere that's affordable to them has been something of a big concern. I guess the other thing that's really been on my mind as a younger person is talking about criminal justice reform. I'm from an urban area. The conversations I hear often are people not feeling that they'll make it to 25, 26, 27. And, I'm a young man, I'm 23. That 4 years from now doesn't seem like a very long time. But when you're talking in the immediacy and you're talking about young people who don't feel that they'll make it, when they're 12, they don't feel that they'll be 22 or 23, we have big problems. And we really need to find a way to give those young people hope. So those are my big things, focusing on the youth and focusing on places to live, because it's really hard to think about longevity if you don't really know where you're going to be the next day or next month.
I've seen that, and I've experienced it through my stepson's eyes. Yeah, he obviously on both ends of that discussion. He was addicted to heroin, and he's been through our criminal justice system. Spent some time in jail, and probably one of the biggest issues for him when he came out was where he's going to live, job, stability. I had him come down and live around in the area that I was so that I could be able to keep like an eye on him to get him involved on those things. But unfortunately, one of the first things he did, you talk about low cost of housing. I had him go. Literally, it was probably within about a quarter to half a mile from where I lived at this place that was like, you paid week by week. It was a lodge. Unfortunately, the people that he was surrounding himself with, and this is a whole new area to him, were people who were having issues with addiction, and we're having criminal justice issues. People he met in jail are the ones, even though they were started out trying to do something good for themselves by going to school and other things along those lines. He gravitated to somebody that was a dealer, and when the guy's like, money, like, when he ran out of money, he turned back to, dealing drugs. I mean, we went through a lot of these cycles of in and out of like different rehabs, him going to different psychiatrists, being on Xanax, and then, finally, like at the point that he told me the first time, I got him involved like in the local methadone clinic, and because I figured that was the best way to stabilize him. What nobody tells you about the local methadone clinic is that's where, people who some are in recovery and some are, some are like somewhere in between. Are hanging around or and unfortunately it took a long time to get him to that point that he could make a certain break. He did eventually. I got him hooked up with a friend of mine who gave him a job, who was going to be a stabilizing force with him. And he has a place to live. And when you have those things, you can grow and you can do well.
Yeah.
And so I know before we came on the air, we were talking about criminal justice reform.
Yeah.
And we were talking about legalization of marijuana. And everybody has different views on legalizing it. But I always think whenever people are putting things together, they're going from one side or the other. It's not always a fully thought out process, that there are unintended consequences.
Yeah.
And you brought up the biggest one, which is...
So I was saying, everyone sees us as a money grab, and that we're just going to magically overnight make money. And like the communities who are heavily affected by weed and by marijuana are our urban inner city centers and our poor suburbs. And we pretend that we don't realize that those areas need assistance. They're most likely people who are eligible for food stamps, for housing services, for help with tuition with college, for help with lighting, heating. And when we say we'll make this much money, we're going to still make money if we legalize marijuana in our state, but if we don't set up that money for the right places where it needs to be, a couple of years down the line, we're going to see the same people who are in destitute situations look around and say, where is the help that we're supposed to get? Even the pardoning system, to me, if we legalize it, what happens to all the people who have these drug charges? Overnight, the crime that they committed, where you stand on the criminal justice issue, the crime that they committed is no longer a crime. What do we do with all those people who are now eligible for services and need our help? We have to think long term about these stuff. And
again, unintended consequences.
Yeah.
I mean, I know, fortunately for our criminal justice system, a lot of, the marijuana, when the governor, and the legislature did change this and to decriminalize it, hopefully there's not the same people sitting in jail because of those various crimes. But you're right. It is people, they see dollar signs and they don't see the need to be able to address all the other issues and deal with the communities that are around. And I think we have an issue in what you say, like the cities and the urban areas that are or the suburban or urban areas that are around them, and you know, some things are no longer, I guess, isolated, and I think that's what I think the opium or addiction really kind of proved. You know, when people are you know, dying in like the northwest or the northeast corner of Connecticut, people all of a sudden say, well, "Oh, this is a problem."
Yeah.
Well, no, it's been a problem. It's been a problem for a long time, and I guess the other trends that I see is there's a lower level of violence or crime, but there's still not a lower level of need of finding a way to help people climb out of the cycles that have been around them for years.
We've done conflict resolution, but we haven't dealt with the conflict itself, which is great. Like that, people are dealing with their emotions and dealing with some of the situations that they're in, but that still doesn't mean they should be dealing with them in the first place.
No, well, I know. Personally, I think poverty is like post-traumatic stress disorder.
Yeah.
You know what? Even when you bring yourself out to a different level of it, it's like something happens and you're all of a sudden you're
back.
You're back in that place that you started out with, and I think it takes a lot to help bring people forward. It's not just you know, a situation of education or opportunity. I think those things are important, but psychologically, it's almost like we have to help people find a way to be able to get their way out of like that thought pattern. And and honestly, I think that's probably one of the reasons why, you know, the cycle continues and it's so hard to break.
Yeah.
Is because you see people, you know, going around and around and around, and they don't have necessarily like a vision to be able to say, well, where is my hope? You know, where are the people that have, you know, that I can look towards, that can be able to have an aspiration to want to be towards.
Yeah.
You know, instead the aspirations are quick money, which, you know, usually lead down, you know, the path of, you know, drugs and other things involved in that. It's tough.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Absolutely.
tough.
Yep.
So you're the next generation. How do we fix this?
Well, I mean, I think we're getting there, though. I think we're getting there, though. You know what I mean? I think we're starting to have that conversation. I was lucky enough to work with Representative Teresa Conroy a few years ago as her intern at the state capitol, and I worked with her a lot on you know, the opioid crisis and how we were going to combat that. And you know, the fact that conversation is starting to happen up in Hartford, the fact that conversation is starting to happen elsewhere, we saw, you know, in a lot of the presidential campaigns, you know, especially this was something Bernie pushed, you know, but especially if you look at the New Hampshire primary, I mean, every candidate was talking about it. I worked for Bernie in New Hampshire. I you know, volunteered for the campaign, and you know, it was such a big issue up there. It was the #1 issue that everyone was talking about. So, you know, we're starting to have that conversation about, hey, you know, let's stop throwing people in jail. That's not solving the problem. You know, we need opportunities for people. We need people to, you know, I mean, this is the thing with the opioid crisis is it touches on so many different levels. You know, it touches on criminal justice. It touches on, you know, racial issues and how, you know, people of different, you know, socioeconomic backgrounds and different racial backgrounds are dealt with in the criminal justice system. You know, it has to do with, you know, treating a medical condition, you know, addiction, you know, as a crime. and how are we going to transition that over to, dealing with it as a medical issue? So, and then, we can talk, go back to marijuana, it's a similar issue, it's been a criminal justice issue. It's so much more than, like Justin said, everyone sees dollar signs, but it's so much more than just a fiscal issue. It is a criminal justice issue that has really turned into, or really for forever now, ever since it's been a criminal justice issue, has been a racial issue, because different people are dealt with different ways in the criminal justice system. So, the fact that we're starting to have this conversation, no, we may not have all the answers, but we're getting to a better place. And I think that gradually we're pulling more people in and getting more people to realize. And I think part of it is that it's hard to find someone who hasn't at least indirectly dealt with addiction. It's really hard to find somebody who doesn't have, a friend or a family member or even a friend of a friend who has, struggled with addiction. And so, people are starting to, I think, realize that, maybe these things aren't as simple as, we have thought they were. So,
Yeah.
It's happening.
And also to add to that, I think, just the new wave of people coming in and thinking about things in a little bit different way. Some people who have some of those experiences personally coming in, like myself not being a neurotypical person, being in politics and seeing other people step up to that plate, and seeing someone with autism on the Board of Education while we're talking about these conversations of how we help our kids who are a little, who aren't neurotypical. We're having conversations about people who, have had family members struggle with documentation, and they come into these spheres connecting the intersections of these different issues. That really gives me hope, because I can talk to other people who can see a bigger picture than I would see and really understand what I should be doing and how I should advocate. And I think that's a really powerful thing.
Well, speaking of which, and I'll go back to the Young Democrats for 2 seconds here. You guys you do have your annual awards dinner.
Yes.
Yeah. Saturday.
Yes.
And I know your legislators are that you have for Legislator of the Year. You have our Majority Leader, Matt Ritter.
Mm-hmm.
I forget which award it is. You have Robin Porter.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think Constance Vickers is on for your
Young Dems.
young Dems, as well as there's somebody else on there with her.
Yeah, there's a lot of people. It's gonna be a packed. It's really gonna be a packed.
I was going out of the top of my head.
Oh no!
Yeah. There's a lot of people. I don't want to miss anyone, because there's a lot of people, and there's a lot of great people that are going to be there. And all the information is on the Connecticut Young Democrats Facebook page.
We'll probably be out after that. So.
Yeah.
But I think it's important, because I think these are the people that are the examples.
Yeah.
Matt Ritter, his dad was, Speaker of the House.
Mm-hmm.
He's a young man himself. I know Robin's probably closer to my age.
Porter for the people.
Porter for the people. But you know what? They've taken on the important issues.
That's
and certainly, one of the bigger ones was, talking about solitary confinement.
Yeah.
Yep, that was a big one.
Of under 18 for criminal justice. So, I mean, there are people that are realize where the next generation is and on what issues are important to them. And, I have to give those people kudos, because they're the ones I know that you guys talk to on a regular basis, and certainly look up to.
Yeah.
You probably talk to Robin more than I do. So.
I talked to her yesterday.
Yeah. We were both at an event with her yesterday. So, yeah.
But looking ahead, do you guys have aspirations to go further than where you are within this, or you just you just in the moment? And for the two of you, what's it like walking into your council meetings?
It's
Is it
humbling.
surreal?
It's humbling. And you know, I think that it's important for us to not focus on, you know, what our next moves are. I think, you know, I have a big problem with people who, you know, get into an elected position and then they're just like looking for the next step. That's not the right reason to be in this. The reason to be in this is because you have issues that you want to tackle. It's because, you know, there's an elected official that you feel isn't doing a good job and you feel that you could do a better job. Personally, I was elected to the council and I sought election to the council because I felt that there were serious issues within the town of Hamden that I want to be a part of tackling. I want to be a part of finding those solutions. And I'm not interested in anything else. I want to focus on those issues, and I wanna be facing those issues head on. And I don't think I can consider any next steps until those issues have been solved.
Yeah. I'm focused on next steps, and that's graduating. So for me, it's been a really humbling experience to be on council and to also be a student and to, you know, sometimes see classmates and go like, oh, like you ran for council, like, oh, like you did that. That's a really cool and awesome thing to happen. For me, I think the next steps are, I had someone who is much older in politics ask me like, now do you realize that you have less power than you thought? And I was like, no, I realize I have way more power and way more responsibility than I thought this job had. And knowing that, I think over the next 22 some months is to make sure that I can do the most that I can at that time, and then to see what happens after that. And by that time, I'll also graduate. So yeah,
And what are you getting your degree in?
biology.
Biology.
I want to do this. I do this work so that eventually I can get a living wage and I can play with fish, because I want to be a marine biologist. So that's why I'm involved with politics.
So if I take you out on like the fishing trips, you're going to tell me how to catch something other than sea robins?
Yeah, we can do it.
So that's all I ever catch whenever I go out. That's the extent of my marine biology.
As long as you're not getting sunnies, you're doing a better job than most.
Well, I don't know. They're not that tasty. I tried it once. It wasn't a good idea. It definitely wasn't a good idea.
Traumatic fishing trips.
Yes, I know. Unfortunately, but that's okay. I have a boat for other reasons. It's my relaxation. So fishing is not like first and foremost on my mind. Now, speaking about Hamden, and I know you guys brought up issues when you were here last about, you know, what you felt the citizens of Hamden were concerned about. And I know one of them you had success with already, I believe. Top of a mountain.
Yeah, it's a big win for Rocky Top. You know, there was a very risky, dangerous development that was going to go in place on Rocky Top, which is a street in Hamden, which is basically part of a ridge. It's actually part of the same ridge that the Sleeping Giant is, and it just sort of extends around, and that's a piece of it. And a developer owned that a whole section of the ridge, and he basically wanted to cut 100 feet off the top of the mountain. It was going to be a mining operation. And on a road that is not big enough for two cars to pass each other, he wanted to put 288 apartments, 500 car parking lot. It would have been a dangerous situation there, not only because of the environmental impact, but you know, the long-term infrastructure. You know, it wouldn't have been able to hold up. So you know, we sort of mounted there was a group of neighbors on Rocky Top that really mounted this, sort of grassroots effort to combat this. And, it ended up turning out to be hundreds of people at Inland Wetlands Commission meetings. It turned out to be, a ton of fundraising and hiring experts to sort of combat the, experts that the developer was bringing in. And we finally had success. The developer did donate the land to the Hampden Land Conservation Trust, and people can go onto their website and make a contribution. That would be a huge help because there are legal fees that are associated with this. There are going to be long-term maintenance costs, and a very generous anonymous donor has agreed to match the first $10,000. So we're really trying to hit that, and anybody who goes onto their website really did make a huge difference. Yeah, that was a big one.
Huge victory for Hampden.
Yeah.
Now that you're in the council, I know I know the perspective is slightly different from when you're outside and you're running. What do you think of like the different issues that are there for your city in the middle of it now?
For me, it's more of an extension of some of the issues. We had 5 vacant homes that are now being renovated and starting to open up to be rented, which is a really great thing to see. Gun violence has been something that has been plaguing my immediate neighborhood. Within maybe 4 or 5 block radius of my house, there's been 9 shootings between Hampden and New Haven in my area, and 2 fatalities within the last 7 months. So it's something that I think of very seriously, and think of violence prevention, and also think of those other resources that we have to really cultivate and bring to the table to help alleviate these situations. And then housing is just another thing, is seeing that people are struggling with housing or can't afford certain costs. It's something that I come back to again and again, and like, that's something that I need to focus on, something that I spend a great deal of thinking about, and I'm excited to start to work on these things. Oh.
Same issues?
So yeah, I mean, obviously we're allies, right? We are representing the same town, different neighborhoods.
Yeah.
We're representing the same town, and gun violence is an issue in certain neighborhoods, and we do need to find a way to combat that, and in a responsible way. It's one thing to just handle gun violence. It's another way to do it responsibly. So that's definitely something we're allies on. I think that for my district, the main issues are much more fiscal. People are concerned all over town about the taxes. Yeah. There are certainly, we already discussed a little bit about the fiscal issues, and so I think what I'm really trying to focus on is dealing with the tough decisions that we're going to have to make, and they're going to come in the next few months. The Board of Ed just made some really tough decisions this week, so they're coming for the council. The council as well is going to have to, on the town side, make some really tough decisions, and doing that in a compassionate way, that in the most responsible way, that has the least impact on the greater amount of people.
Yeah.
Is really going to be my big focus. Because if we have a fiscally responsible town, we can start to do more things to tackle the issues like gun violence. We can start to put in broadband. We can start to offer universal Wi-Fi. Things like that. We need to have a more fiscally responsible town to be able to be more competitive in terms of business. So that's, I think, as we approach another legislative session, I think that is going to be my main focus, and going up to Hartford and sort of lobbying for what we need.
And your guys' representatives in Hartford are?
My representative is actually Michael D'Agostino. My state senator right now is Senator Logan. And I think
For me, it's Senator Logan is the senator that represents my area, and my rep is Robin Porter.
right.
So
And we also have Representative Elliott,
yeah.
who has been an ally to us on a lot of different issues, and we have Senator Looney as well, who represents a big almost half, I think, of Hamden.
Oh, okay.
So that's we've been he's been our big target in terms of ECS funding. I mean, the educational cost sharing funding, Hamden has been shorted $18 million a year for 20 years. That's 8% of our mill rate, and with one of the highest mill rates in the state, 10% or 8% is a lot.
Yeah.
So trying to get everyone to work together to sort of help the towns that have been shorted by a really destructive ECS formula. I think that is probably going to be my biggest focus this legislative session, because that's I think what's doing Hamden the most amount of damage fiscally, and I'm personally tired of seeing our students pay the prices for mistakes that they didn't make.
Fair enough.
What he said. That's teamwork.
Going
It's
for
teamwork always,
going for the easy route, huh? Is that the way about it?
It's teamwork all the way. We really try to work as a team and try to tackle Hamden's big issues
you know what?
together.
If you don't have allies to be able to work together with things, I know I've certainly gone time periods where I haven't had people, and time periods where I have had people working with me, and to me, life is much better all the way around when you have others that are working with you, and certainly I know what my assets or values are, and they're usually getting people connected and bringing people together, and knowing that there are some things that I'm going to have experience or knowledge that other people won't have on certain issues, and there's other times where I can listen to what other people have to say and really try to work around what are my thoughts or what are my attitudes towards it. But you brought up one of the important things, and as we talk about violence or crime going down and less people in our jail system, violence still is an issue.
Yeah.
It is.
And it's a big one for our cities. And I know my stepson lives in Bridgeport, and I hear about somebody getting shot, and I'm like, oh God, please don't be him. And
Yeah.
I can only imagine what that's like to be in the middle of it. Do you guys see some of the community solutions that might be out there that can help with this? I know I've always listened to people say, oh, we need to take care of like violence or guns and other things, but those are words.
So
Yeah.
we've been working with different community outreach programs to have people go into the community and have conflict resolution with some of the younger kids and keep them out of trouble. I think something else that's really great is we have many, to speak for myself and Senator Winfield and Rep. Porter, we all live in the same neighborhood, and maybe I would say they're 4 blocks away from me, and we live in one of the urban areas where you can see the problems. And I think that's a huge thing right there, just to have leaders who are literally in the community right there. Shows that no, I understand that this is important, and I care, and we care. Showing up at the schools and just even saying hello to the kids and say hey, we're here, and trying to make sure that my information is out there, so if a student feels that they can get involved with me and maybe help them avoid situations, or if they feel that they don't have anyone to call to be someone to be involved, I think that's something that's great. But I think especially by the end of this coming off, if not the starting of next one, personally, I know I'm going to be knocking doors again especially in these areas, to say like, hey, what can I do to help? Because as much as I would like to help and feel that I have the knowledge, oftentimes it's simple things. We're talking to individuals; they know what the best solution is. So that's something that I've been looking at my schedule and like going, okay, well, I have class here, I have a council meeting here.
Yeah.
This is where I'm going to go out and like talk to parents and figure out what's going on.
Community focus.
Yeah.
I like that. Well, knocking doors isn't just for
No,
for
it's-
asking for people's votes. Knocking doors is the opportunity to be able to talk to people. And sometimes I think if you give people the handout or the reach out towards them, rather than just thinking that everybody's going to find you
Yeah.
or knows how to find you.
Yeah.
Which is probably the bigger issue is, a lot of people, I mean, I know they have like monthly meetings or, they'll do constituent meetings that they'll put up on Facebook. Well, what if you don't have Wi-Fi?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What if you don't have, an internet connection? What if you don't know that this is
Babysitting.
who I should be asking?
All those. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So yeah, that's my answer. I wish I had more of an answer, but my answer is
Well, you know what?
effort.
Sometimes looking for the answer is how you get to those points. And, to be unafraid to go ask other people. Certainly, all the legislators I deal with, they walk in and they say, well, the most important thing that you can do is listen to your constituents because they're going to give you the answers or tell you what their needs are. And for people that come and talk to your representatives, come with ideas, come with answers.
Yeah.
Because you're not necessarily going to have all the solutions, or I think that you guys come across with the humility that you have to find the solutions that work for your community. I think a lot of times when I look at like the federal government, they have their own ideas
Yeah. Yeah.
about how things should be run or how things should be done, and they never reach out to their home constituents. They wait to hear the phone calls from the people that are going to bitch at them the most.
Yeah.
And those are people that know how to get connected
Yeah.
or to be connected, or they've been on the other side of it in different communities where organizers get together and teach people how to do those things. But if you're somewhere in between,
Yeah.
they don't understand, and I don't think they
Yeah.
get it. And some of the comments and reactions I've heard out of some legislators, not in the state of Connecticut or locally, this is more federally, are just so out of tune,
Yeah.
that it just blows my doors in. I mean, from our president, I won't call him my president, the president, on down to people. But I think about how do you affect like those people from other areas, and what things can you do? And I think a good example of what you can do is people. You got a telephone. You can phone bank from anywhere.
Yeah, you can. Yeah. And I think that let's not wait until campaign season to make a difference. Yeah, everyone can get involved in a campaign or in a cause that they believe in. Let's not wait until that point, because we have local elected officials, we have state elected officials that do hold events, that do have your ear, that it is very much easier to get into contact with. And like you said, we don't have all the answers. And when we hold these events, and when we show up to events around town and around our areas, we are there to listen just as much as we are there to sort of be a part of the discussion. So to go back to gun violence, there's no one answer to how to combat gun violence, because it's not just the type of gun violence that you have in one area or another. You know, yes, you have the gun violence that you know Justin is combating in his neighborhood, but in all over the place, but more so in rural areas, the type of gun violence we have are issues like domestic violence, which is an issue that we don't talk about enough. So it's really important that people are coming to these events, or showing up, getting involved one way or another, getting the ear of your local elected officials, your state elected officials, because they are much more accessible than people realize. And it's really important that you're a part of that discussion, because there's never one answer to any issue.
Well, I know I actually ran over here by accident, so I didn't get the 5-minute signal. So I know I have to wrap this up. You know what? I can't thank you guys for coming back on again. Obviously, we're going to have you back on again in the future, because as you grapple with these issues, I want to hear about them.
Yeah.
Because I think it's important, and I think it's important for your community to know, okay, these are the ways, or what we found out like in between, and from talking to you. And I thank you for your motivation. I thank you for your enthusiasm. And really what I thank you for is caring about your fellow human beings. And that's probably most important. Brad, thank you.
Good to see you.
Thank you, Justin. And with that, we can run the street.